Rule Britannia, rule the waves, Britons never will be slaves. Now I'm sure you've heard that line before, either in some patriotic song or patriotic event if you're from the United Kingdom. It's still popular today and it's still sung on multiple occasions. The song was first performed in 1740 at Clifton House, the residence of Frederick, Prince of Wales. It was part of a mass called Alfred. It was written to celebrate the accession of George I's grandson Frederick as a political alternative to his father George II. This song was penned together by a Scottish poet, also known for the seasons, James Thomson, who wrote the lyrics, while the melody was produced by a well-known English composer, Thomas Arne. This song easily gained traction and originally was number 1 in the Mask. However, the song was so striking that it broke free and became its own patriotic anthem. Its lyrics, and also the most famous line, is of course, Rule Britannia, Britannia rule the waves, and Britons never will be slaves. The ideas revolve around 3 main things, which are its naval supremacy, as Britain's strength and security lies in dominating the seas. It's also a contrast between liberty and slavery. Britain is usually portrayed as destined to remain free, unlike other nations that might fall into tyranny. And the third one is national destiny, which presents Britain's role almost as divinely ordained to lead and defend freedom. At that time, they were not trying to brag, because in the 18th century, Britain was definitely a superpower and in fierce competition with France, Spain, and the Dutch for control of trade routes and colonies, and the idea that Britain's identity was bound to the seas resonated strongly with its people. However, the original context wasn't purely patriotic or pro-empire. Some major historians argue that Alfred and Rule Britannia had political undertones tied to Prince Frederick's opposition to his father George II and his Prime Minister Sir Robert Walpole. There's also evidence for letters and audience reactions suggesting that some contemporaries understood Rule Britannia as a rallying cry aligned with Prince Frederick and political factions opposed to King George II, not just as a celebration of British naval power. Alternatively, the idea of slavery in the song is more symbolic than literal. While modern critics often connect the phrase Britain will never be slaves to Britain's history of colonialism and slavery, the imagery in Rule Britannia is more about national freedom, divine destiny, and resistance against tyranny. The historical context behind this song in the early 1740s, which were pretty dramatic for Britain's history. There was an ongoing war with Spain, there was growing rivalry with France over colonies, and the British Navy was becoming central to military strategy. This song, Rule Britannia, captured the sense of naval destiny perfectly. It became more than just entertainment and sort of was propaganda rallying support for Britain's maritime ambitions. By the late 18th century, the song was hugely popular, sung in taverns, at patriotic gatherings, and by the Royal Navy. The song almost became an unofficial national anthem before God Save the King rose to become the official one. During the 19th century, when Britain truly did quote-unquote rule the waves as the world's largest naval power, the song became even more symbolic of the empire at its height. It is still occasionally performed at the night of the proms, often with the audience waving flags and joining in, though sometimes debated as being too imperialistic. In the 21st century, some critics see Rule Britannia as being tied to Britain's colonial and imperial past. The phrase, never will be slaves, is often singled out, since it clashes what Britons did during its early days in its slave trade. Others, though, do defend it as part of cultural tradition, claiming the song's message is about freedom and resilience rather than domination and imperialistic nature. This song became linked with the empire and sea power, but in 1740, when James Thomson penned this song together, that was probably not what he had in his mind. Rule Britannia began as a piece of court entertainment, but evolved into one of the most iconic patriotic songs in British history. Its themes of liberty, naval supremacy, and national destiny has helped Britain define its self-image during the 18th and 19th century, and even today, it still carries both pride and controversy, depending on how one reads its connections to empire and history.